Hi folks, welcome back. If anyone checks the timeline of these videos, the last video I shot of this was practically 12 months ago, I think. And you may have seen that at the time I'd had a hand injury, and it was all strapped up. Thankfully, that's all over and done with now. I've got most of the use back in my hand. Thumb's still a little bit numb in places, and I do struggle a little bit with the grip, but other than that, everything's working again. So I'm back, or starting to get back into the modeling. And one thing I wanted to sort of start to finish off now is this Orion clipper from Moebius. So I did do a basic review of it, and I'd started some modifications, so I'll sort of run through those again, and then there'll be another video shortly after this with some painting done and the things starting to go together. So first things first, bit of a catch up of where I got to with it. I did mention about I'd dremeled the back of the ceiling out so I could open all the lights up. So that's still going ahead with the lighting. The actual passenger cabin parts, you'll notice I've added these white styrene parts to the sides and cut them out. And what they're for, I had a trial run with the actual kit windows, which are these. And although they're pretty decent for, you know, if you're just building it and you're not really bothered about seeing the interior. However, to look through them and see the interior properly, it's a bit like looking through the bottom of a bottle. It's not very clear at all. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to sort of do a little bit of a compromise, and I'm going to use some thin acetate sheet, which will fit on the inside of the cockpit parts here. It'll fit on the inside of here, which will allow you to see the inside more clearly. The only disadvantage is these are sort of raised, which is what gives them their thickness. And when these are actually fitted inside, I think this is actually from the other side, but you get the idea. They fill the recess of the windows, and so there will be a kind of, you know, a slightly deeper recess here, but I think it's worth it for the, you know, the sort of bit of a compromise, but it's also it's much better for actually seeing the interior. And when this is fitted in, it fits on these little pegs here. Those styrene parts from the outside fill the gap that you'd get from just using a thin sheet of styrene. You don't have a surrounding gap. So overall, once it's all painted, it'll look like it's supposed to be. But you do have to sort of pack the windows out slightly on the outside to take up the slack of using a thinner transparency. So while I've got the fuselage in my hand, I mentioned about I'd replaced all of the what I considered overscale paneling or detailing on the bodywork. I've now done that to both sides. In some places it matches. There's a couple of bits that aren't quite exactly the same, but you know, it's better for the overall effect. They are much thinner. There was a couple of pieces I've added to the bottom of the wing, nothing too spectacular, and I've still got to organise about filling this slot in, because I'm not using the kit stand. I'm going to mount it probably somewhere around this region on a brass tube, so I can take the wiring through it to connect it up to a power supply, so that the lighting works like that. So I'll probably put it on maybe a little bit like I did with the Discovery. big discovery I built, I'll use a black stand to mimic the monolith really from the movie. Maybe put a an Ares sort of mission or flight patch or whatever on it as well. But I think that's about the ideal place to mount the light in. So I'm going to have to fill this up and also make good that part there, because it's actually part of the detail. It's a shame that they didn't leave this as a separate part and then add it later, but there you go. So the tops of the wings have also had some of the styrene added. Another thing I've done in these is I'm going to fit wingtip navigation lights. So if that'll close up a little bit better there and focus, maybe just about. I've actually dremeled the light out there and put a little bit of a channel in both halves of the wing in order to feed a wire down. And then in the base of the wing, or the bottom part of the wing, I've cut these two sections out so I can feed the wires through here. And then everything, the wires from the engines are going to go through these holes I've drilled here, and everything will feed down through there and out, as I said, into that brass tube. So it's starting to come together in terms of lots of little jobs. There's also on this part, again, I don't know whether it'll show up, the focus is a little bit flaky on this camera. There's two tiny recesses there where my fingertip is there, and I'm going to drill those out and fit a light in there as well, which then lights a sort of lighting piece, or a clear piece that goes in this part of the wing root there. So I've got to fiddle around with that yet to get that right. So as I said, the parts are coming on quite well now that I've got back into it. One sort of more complicated part I've done is, this is the tail section, and I've assembled it. I've not fitted the lights yet because my lighting pack that I did last time will actually slide inside there, and I'll be able to glue it in once this is all painted. What I want to do, I want to paint up the back end first, so I don't get any paint on the lights. And you'll notice that I've added these tiny thin strakes inside the engine, I suppose you'd call it the exhaust, and what I actually used for that, if anyone's interested in doing it themselves, is this particular evergreen strip. It's what's that, 0.28 mil by 0.56 mil, and that seemed to be around the right dimension. It's not too, it's thin enough, or rather it's thick enough that it'll show up under the paint, but it's thin enough that it doesn't look too overdone. The way I did this was I started on the inside of this sort of fin part here, and I divided this up into equal parts, and then did one side and then did the others to match it so that they match at the top edge there. So that pattern there matches the pattern on the other side there. And then these were kind of done, I'd sort of eyeballed these in order to get them in position. It's quite fiddly, and obviously they're just tacked on with some liquid cement and then glued along the length. But I think once the whole thing's together and painted, and they have a very, very light dry brush in a sort of contrasting black, it'll look the part. Another thing that you need to do to this, there is quite a prominent gap along this back edge here, so I've inserted a sheet of styrene in there and then clean that up. I think some of this I might just, there's a minor gap there, but it's difficult to fill without losing any of this detail here or damaging it. So I'll probably drop in some, I tend to use crystal clear, this stuff. I know it's only PVA, but I sort of put that in before the first coat of paint goes on it, and it does give you a decent sort of fill without having to sand it off. Another bit that needed attention was the join here, where this, again, the sort of light's a bit too bright there, isn't it? But it's the join where this very tiny tip of the tail cone with the antenna fits to this. It's a very poor fit there, so it all needs filling and blending in, carefully sanding so you don't lose this nice shape here. I'd rather have left these off till the end, but unfortunately that's the way they come. They could have maybe have provided these as two separate parts to actually glue onto these stubs once you've finished painting and assembling, because they could be, I mean, they're quite strong, but you could potentially knock them off. I did toy with the idea of replacing these with brass tubing, but I thought, no, they look okay as they are, I think. The kit itself, the top seam, which normally you'd sand off, in a lot of places it's another panel line. It's made deliberately to show off a panel line. So in some places I've sanded it, and in some places I've left it in order to sort of just blend it in. The same on the bottom. They're panel lines. They're not where I haven't sanded the seam. But I did have to sand the back end because there was a bit of a step here. So I've gone with that being like one single piece. So as I say, I'll fit the lighting in here through the back end there. You can just see the lights there, or rather where the lights are going to go, the vents for the engine, and they'll be lit once it's all together. So the plan is to paint this all black inside, and then I'll mask off the inside, then glue the lighting assembly in, and then assemble this to the rest of the fuselage. And then once I've painted the whole thing, I can pull the masking out and none of the paint will have gone in and damaged the lighting. The rest of it is it looks pretty decent now. I've still got lots of interior parts here. All the seats, they've all been cleaned up and need painting, and obviously the interior panels and everything. I'm going to see about printing some figures off. I think I mentioned it before that the scale's a little bit off, because although this is described as 1/72, the seats look more like, I don't know, maybe 1:100 scale, or maybe a little bit bigger. So I'm going to test print a figure at 1:100 and see what it looks like inside the seat. Might need to go a bit bigger, say 1/96 or something like that. But they certainly don't look like 1/72. So I'll fiddle about with that till I get it right. Another thing is, I think the last video I shot featured the was it HDX or HDA decals that eventually came. And although I sort of liked the look of them at the time, a few people pointed out that some of the lettering was a little bit wrong on them. And I've since sourced this sheet. In fact, I can't even put my hand on the other set now. I'm done with those. But I've sourced this sheet from Japan. And this is from Maganote Productions. Now, they do a lot of stuff based around Blade Runner, and they've done figures, and they did a decal sheet for the Fujimi spinner. And they're very, very good quality decals. Sheet is it's smaller than the other sheet that came, but it's certainly better quality. What they do feature, obviously, they've got the correct typeface for the Pan Am writing and the two logos. But the other thing you do get, I'll bring this a bit closer, you get these very nice instrument panels. Now on here in tiny writing it says a kit size for that one there, and then it's got the same one slightly bigger. So I don't know whether one is, say, how it's featured in the film and the other one is how it fits in the kit. I don't know. You don't get instructions with these, but what they do give you is a QR code, which if you scan the QR code, it takes you to their website where the instructions are and you can print them off. So I'll have to print a set of the instructions off. There is another little tiny set in here, which let me just have a look at this. This is not sure what that is actually. Don't know whether that's more stencils for this or something else, but I'll no doubt find out when I go onto the website. There's quite a lot of stencil detail on here. As you can see there, that'll actually close up quite well. You can see how well printed it is. And move it around a bit. All those grey rectangles are the screens for the backs of the seats. And the little black strip you can see next to them, which I don't think it'll focus that well. No, you just barely make them out. They're the controls for the arms of the seat. Quite what they're going to look like when they're applied, I've no idea. But as I say, these instrument panels here, you can see they're really well done. You've got the two screens just at this end here. Where am I? There, which are the caution weightless signs for the end of the cabin. And then there's these super tiny things here, these, you know, like really, where was my finger? This little tiny row of things here. Let's see if that will focus. No, it doesn't want to do it now, does it? They're virtually unreadable. I don't even know what they are. One of them looks like a tiny Pan Am logo, which I'm suspecting it might be for the uniform of the stewardess. Which I'm not sure how you're going to see that, but anyway. But it's a really nice set. I got it through HobbyLink Japan, so you know, I don't know whether they're still available. They probably are. I've had it a while because I bought these while I couldn't build anything with my hand. But the code number is there if you want to look them up on. It's not focusing again, is it? So with this, I'll tell you what it is. It's MGN 00068. So that's the set number. And let's see if I can get a better view of that. There you go. That's the details of the company that makes them. But I don't think they sell online other than through HobbyLink Japan. So you'll be able to order a set through there if you're interested. I'd say the HDA or HDX ones were I thought they looked okay when I got them, but then closer inspection they didn't look quite the thing that I thought they were. So they're going to be used, obviously. So that's about where I'm up to at the moment. Really, I've only just picked this up yesterday and sort of looked at it again and got the bits out of the box. So and all I've done to it so far is these strakes on the inside of the exhausts. So I'll carry on working on this. I'm going to give these a coat of black paint as soon as, and then I'll be able to get it all masked off, put the lighting in, and then get on with assembling the rest of it and obviously build the interior. So that I think the next video is likely to be of the interior sort of ready to insert into the inside of the fuselage. And I'm hoping, because I've sort of done a lot of the donkey work on this already, so I'm hoping that I'll get this together in a fairly short space of time, because I'm keen to see what it looks like when it's fully assembled. It is a huge model when it's together. It's very impressive to look at. One more thing actually was, I was talking about in the nose cone of this part here. Well, it's not really a cone, but in the let's see, which way round am I here? So the nose part, it's got this kind of intake with like a blanking plate at the back. When you put it together, you can see a seam inside, which is like impossible to clean up. And I was saying about putting some kind of grill in there. Well, I've actually picked up some brass grill from Green Stuff World, and there's different patterns here. This is like a square pattern, and this is one with just holes in. So I think I might go for the square pattern because it looks a little bit more sort of spacey. See if I can open this and see what it looks like. And it's just photo etched brass basically, but so we can get this out. You get 2 sheets in each one, but there you go. You can see how fine that is, and it is see-through. But really, it's just going to represent a some kind of, you know, intake or something. So I'll probably cut a piece that will fit over both pieces and then insert that prior to gluing the 2 sides up, because I don't think you can get it in afterwards because of the overhang on the plastic. And then hopefully that'll look good once it's all painted up. So as ever, thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully be back very shortly with some paint on, certainly parts of it anyway. Okay, cheers, thanks.